Welcome back to today's episode of Words of the Wise. Today I have Chief Hughes from Hamilton Township PD in Ohio, 29 years total in law enforcement. Welcome to the show, Chief Hughes. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Paige, for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I feel almost a little bit nervous because you also host your own podcast. So you have been on the other side of this chair. So I'm excited
Yeah.
to get your perspectives and the things that you've learned along the way. But give us a little bit of background in your career in the last 29 years.
Yeah, so on the sworn side of the house, I started off like a lot of cops do. Back in the mid '90s, it was all about find a department to hire you ASAP, and we were all fighting for part-time jobs or full-time jobs, whatever you could get your hands on. It didn't much matter. And I landed in a 1 square mile town north of Cincinnati, where I worked for about 3 years. Left there, went to a much larger agency that actually bordered Cincinnati, and I spent about 16 and a half, almost 17 years there. And I always say when I speak and teach that it was that experience there that really gave me all my cool cop stories,
Mm.
because I got through a lot of really cool things in law enforcement working there. Everything from being a traffic car to an FTO, running our Explorer program, being a supervisor, running our street crimes unit. It was a great experience, and made a lot of lifelong friends there. Um, from there, honestly, what happened was I kind of hit the ceiling. Like a lot of departments back in the '90s, a mass influx of folks came in, and I looked around, and there was a lot of us that were going to be looking for the same kind of movements up the chain, and there weren't going to be that many jobs open. So I decided to leave. I had an opportunity to go become an assistant chief of police in a city outside Dayton, Ohio. I was there for not quite a year when the chief's position opened up here in Hamilton Township in Warren County, Ohio, which happens to be where I've lived for, now 23 years. So is that math right? Yeah. Uh, Whatever, it doesn't matter. 15 years. Anyhow, it doesn't matter. But I live here, and to be able to live and work as the chief in the same community is really cool. We're one of the fastest growing communities in the state of Ohio. So a lot of changes since I've been here. To be 10 years next month, I've been the chief. So, and I know we're going to get into some other stuff later on. But and then since 2013, I've been teaching for Calibre Press, one of the country's largest law enforcement training organizations. I do some other stuff independent on my own. I do a lot of expert witness work around the country, defending police officers and everything from use of force to pursuits to policy issues. So yeah, I stay very busy, and I'm a father and a husband. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Love it. I'm curious,
Yeah,
from a leadership perspective, what is the greatest lesson that you've learned so far, or the best piece of advice that someone gave you in terms of leadership?
without a doubt, it's remember where you came from. I
Mm.
think the higher up you go, the easier it is to become disconnected with your troops, and it's a struggle sometimes to remember that you're the chief and there's 5, 6, 7, 8 layers between an officer working midnights and you. And whenever you get the opportunity to kind of reflect, remember where you came from, I think it quickly grounds you and to remember why you do this. I'm standing here with you in uniform, vest, gun belt, radio, not because I'm going to go out here and make a traffic stop, but I want my guys and gals to see me like this because it reflects who they are. And, if I am out there and something happens, I want to be prepared. So, anyhow, little things like that I just think are important. I've said before, though, I don't wear a uniform every single day. Somebody will call me out on that and be like, "Well, I saw you in a suit one day." You're right, but if 90% of the time I'm dressed like this, I think it sends the right message, and it reminds me to never forget where I came from. I think that's without doubt the biggest lesson.
Do you think that that mentality allowed you to continue learning and growing as a person, as a leader, but then also allowed you to show up better for the people who you are leading?
I think it definitely adds credibility
Mm.
when you. So I'm the guy from the outside. I didn't come from within. So I got hired, like I said, 10 years ago, next week. it'll be my 10th, yeah, my 10-year anniversary next week. So I'm coming in from the outside. Nobody really knows me. A couple guys knew me from teaching them in the police academy back in the day, but there's this really weird, like, let's feel this guy out. What's he going to be about? And, they do their Google searches and they start reaching out to cops at other departments where I used to work. And hey, how was he? How was he? When I got in here 10 years ago, it's not the same department as it is now, without a doubt. We have completely transformed the department. The sophistication's changed, technology's changed, hiring standards have changed, just everything has changed. And not that they were doing anything wrong before, that's not the point. We have just progressed so much, and the sophistication in this community and law enforcement has progressed so much that we had to just make a lot of changes, all for the betterment of internally and externally. So back to your original point, yeah, I think when you come in and you look like them and they feel like, hey, you're one of us, it was easier for me early on to get that trust and get that buy-in that we were really looking for. Because trust is the backbone of all relationships. I've said that numerous times. If your people don't trust you, you're not going to get anywhere with them. Now, does that mean things are always rosy 24/7? Of course not, right? But if the majority of the time things are going good and people are happy, then we're doing something right.
I think even just walking in and having a certain level of humility and understanding and being like, man, like I've done what you do. And I remember what it was like to do what you do. And I
Yeah.
understand what you're going through, and I see you. I think that that helps people to feel valued and understood. And I think that that helps to build the trust too. So I love that you said, hey, like, one, remember where you came from, but then also, like, how can you meet people where they are, to build that trust and that culture within the organization. I know that you said you came in as an outsider, and I've talked to a lot of different chiefs who do. There's movement that happens. How do you navigate that, like strategically? Were there things that you did initially to kind of showcase who you are, what your mission was, maybe some of the goals for the future, so that you can build that strong foundation?
Yeah, I was lucky. One of the things I left out is, I've been teaching the police academies here locally since 1999. So in 2016, when I became chief, I've been teaching the academy for 16, 17 years. So
Mm.
I had what I like to think is a good reputation as an instructor. And I've been teaching, I told you, for Calibre Press at the time for 3 or 4 years. So some of the guys and gals had seen me at training classes, and word spreads, right? Cops talk. So they kind of knew who I was before I actually got here. And I mentioned, they all did their Google research and everything ahead of time as well. But I think for me, it was a little bit easier because uh, they knew enough about my background to know, hey, this guy really cares about cops. He trains cops. He's passionate about law enforcement. I don't have a track record of going after cops and, doing some of the things that unfortunately we've heard some horror stories of. Wasn't a hatchet man. None of those kind of things that I've heard other people express before. So that definitely helped establish that credibility that they had, that my reputation kind of spoke for itself.
Yeah.
Again, it's not always been a smooth road. We've had some roadblocks. We've had to make some detours, and that just happens when you deal with people and you deal with change. It's to be expected. No hard feelings anywhere. Um, but all in all, we've completely changed this culture, set ourselves up to be what I consider a role model agency from, again, training, equipment, programs we offer. We're your typical suburb. We're 35,000 residents, about 36 square miles. 3 dozen or so sworn personnel. So we're your typical department in America, and we only have so many opportunities to give people, but with those opportunities, excuse me, we only have so many opportunities to give folks. So we try to do the best we can with what we have to work with. So,
Yeah. There's nothing that has made me feel older than, because I started at the academy level too. That was how I kind of, started in this wellness space, was
mm-hmm.
at Phoenix Regional Police Academy 8 years ago, almost 9 years ago. And I had someone at one of the local agencies come up to me and they're like, hey, you taught my recruit class in 2018. And I was like, Oh, like it just, I was
Well,
like,
wait until
like,
you've taught, yeah, wait until you've taught people who are now police chiefs.
yeah,
You know,
whoa,
one of
weird.
a cadet that I had back in the day is now assistant chief at an organization, and yeah, that makes you feel, yeah, oh
Yeah. Yeah.
well.
Or the tattoos that say like 2001 or,
Yeah.
you're like, dang it. So I do want to talk a little bit about, the training and the wellness that you guys are doing now.
Yeah.
But my first question for you is, when did wellness become a priority for you and why? Was there like a specific time or event that happened where it was like, this has to be one of our top
Yeah.
priorities?
Yeah. I'll tell you what happened was this little girl, is it going to come into focus? I don't know if it's going to come into focus or not. There we
Yeah,
are.
I see it. Yeah.
So that girl, her name was Emery Shandorf Wood. And on August 22nd, 2021, she tragically drowned in a pond here in our community. Um, that same year, a few months earlier, we had a double officer involved shooting where two of my guys shot and killed a guy in a domestic. And in between the officer involved shooting and Emory, we had a couple other critical incidents that some agencies wouldn't consider critical, but they're critical for us. So we had the OIS, we had critical incidents, we had Emory drowning, and for a department our size, and we were a little bit smaller back then, that really kind of punched us right in the face. So as a result of the officer involved shooting, we got connected with um, a really good first responder slash military like um, someone in that wellness space. And my guys and gals absolutely loved her. So fast forward, we have a couple of critical incidents. We had this drowning, and I find out that hey, folks are still going and talking to her from way back when the shooting happened. And then I found out in the 2022 that folks were still talking to her.
Mm.
So my assistant chief now and I sat down and said, hey, there were some grants available at the time through the state of Ohio that we could pursue, and we did, and we were granted a grant, and we brought her in as kind of a trial basis. And I'm gonna probably mess this up, but I think it was two mandatory trainings a year and then like two check-ins, right? And surprisingly, everybody absolutely loved it. They loved just getting things off their chest. They just love talking about things. And, I'm not privy to any of it, but, you hear hallway talk and they just really liked her and there was a connection with her. So I think we're in our fourth year now, our third year now ish, maybe fourth with her. And now it's evolved to there's no grant. It's part of my budget. We pay for two trainings still, and then they get four. So every quarter, there's a mandatory check-in they have to go to. Now, when I say mandatory, because I've talked about this before, they can go in there and not say a word. They can go in there and they can talk about whatever they want. But two of those four, you're to bring your spouse or significant other, which
Mm.
is really cool because you and I both know that these issues don't stop here. A lot of these things go home. And while I obviously can't get into some details of what I am familiar with on a couple cases, I feel like some of our guys and gals have talked to our wellness folks more because of things going on in their personal life than what is going on in their professional life. But you and I both have that, that bleeds over.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, we're very proud of that. The wellness space, I think you've had enough guests on here talk about it, is starting to not have such a stigma. I do think there is still some areas of the country, some departments where there's still some pushback and there's still some toughen it up kind of attitude. And I just think as we evolve as people, we have to continue to evolve with the needs. And I think there's enough research out there that talks about how beneficial it is to get this stuff off your chest and have an outlet. I mentioned earlier that I do a lot of work defending cops, and I see firsthand what happens when officers are involved in some of these critical incidents because I'm intimately involved with their cases. And a lot of these scenarios that these officers are facing are things that they're extremely stressful, high levels of acute stress. They can't handle the stress in a lot of these cases. They're not prepared to do it. And then the incident happens, they handle business, they do what they needed to do, but then there's no like mechanism to calm down or to kind of like, it drives me nuts because a lot of departments still, if you get involved in an officer involved shooting, the first thing they do if it looks any question, if it's questionable at all, they take this and they take your gun from you. And I always say, how are you defined in this job? You're defined by this and your gun. And if you take those from me, you've taken my identity.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have people that freak out when those same officers are now addicted to alcohol, drugs, or they commit suicide. And we're like, well, what the hell? Well, some of the stuff's because we got to look in the own mirror or look in our own mirrors and go, well, yeah, you could have predicted this. You just took everything away from this person. And then you tell the departments, don't talk to him or her. Don't get involved. Because if you get involved, then you got to go to the grand jury or you got to get sucked into the administrative investigation. Well, again, it's a brotherhood and a sisterhood. So now you've taken my badge, you've taken my gun. I can't talk to anybody. I feel worthless. I'm on social media. I see what people are saying, and it's just this. It just spirals. So
Yeah.
I
Well,
digress.
no, and I know it's so cheesy to say, and I've said this a couple times on this podcast, but if it's predictable, it's preventable.
Right.
Right? Like we
Yep.
talk about that all the time. It's like if
Yeah.
you know that these things happen and we know why these things happen, then how can we start making changes in a different direction that are more positive? How can we start reducing the risk of some of those things that are predictable from happening? And we can talk about it in like super simple terms. Like we can, because I think a lot of people can get on board with things that are tangible, right? So we talk about physical injuries. We know the top injuries. There's so much data to support like what are those top injuries that happen in law enforcement. We know what those are. And for people who don't know what they are, vast majority are going to be musculoskeletal, right? So shoulders, backs, knees, hamstrings. And then what are the reasons for those injuries? Okay, so if we know the top injuries, we know the reasons for injuries, then now we can start working backwards and understand what are the resources that reduce those injuries, and then we can reduce the risk. And to me, it sounds really simple, but it just takes a lot of, I think, awareness to understand, okay, hey, what are the things that are predictable? And then how can we start making our way towards more of that prevention and that proactive preventative approach?
Yeah.
Um,
I'm more. I'm still kind of old school page, so I'm a classic uniform guy, and I get some pushback on that because of the point you just brought up, especially with the back issues and the outer vest carriers. But I'm still more of a traditionalist, and I appearance commands respect kind of a thing. But to counter that, one of the things that I did here, well, two things I did here. One, we instituted a workout on duty policy. So we work 12-hour shifts. My guys and gals get 90 minutes a shift. That includes showering and getting ready. They get 90 minutes a shift to work out on duty. Now, there are some restrictions built in. Obviously, there's certain times of day you can't do it. Friday and Saturday nights between peak hours. You need to have a certain number of people on the road. You got to keep your radio on. You can't be trying to set PRs, personal records for how much you can bench, how much you can squat. You can't do anything that requires a spotter. You get the idea.
Yeah.
Outside of that, do with it what you want. And I'm very happy that I'm going to spitball. I'm going to say probably 70%, if not higher, of my agency takes advantage of that working out on duty policy. That's the first thing I did to your point, to try to keep those injuries from occurring is doing some of the preventative things. The second thing we did is we have an athletic trainer in our community every single week. In fact, as we stand here right now, he's next door at the fire department, and any of my personnel can go see him there. The fireman can come here when he's here once or twice a week. Sometimes he's here 3 days a week if he's doing the fire department because of their different shifts. And we have complete access to that free of charge.
Yeah.
Part of that program is he gives township wide to all the employees nutrition information, stretching information, sleep, whatever. And I think to your point a second ago, Paige, you talk about wellness. We miss that side of the house, right? We miss the everybody gets to take care of yourself, go run, go jog, go lift some weights, but it's the stretching, it's the preventative things. Great example. I had an officer, I hired him 4 days after I hire him, he blows out his ACL playing basketball. His mind goes to, oh my gosh, I'm not going to have a job. No, my mind goes to, how quick can I get this kid back?
Yep.
So I send him, we hook him up with our athletic trainer. Our athletic trainer is connected to an orthopedic facility. Long story short, I get him back 8 weeks or 10 weeks, one of the two, back earlier than was anticipated because of the aggressive PT that we exposed him to that I don't know he would have gotten had it not been for this arrangement. So he's, to the point a second ago, like those are kind of some of the steps that we've taken to try to prevent some of the issues that you just discussed.
That's great. I always tell people I try to put things in like really simple terms so that like people can get on board with it. And I say, and we talk about like mobility and injury prevention, I say, if you don't bend, you break.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's super simple. If you don't
Yeah.
bend, you break. And so if we
Yeah.
know that, then let's start to work so that you have more pliability and mobility. And, then we're going to create more sustainability long term. So I
And
think,
that's what yeah. Well, sorry. And that's what he gives you. He gives you like, if you do go down and see him for an injury, like right now, my IT band is tight. So as I'm standing here, I'm doing these stretches because I'm obviously have a standing desk, but like he gives you these kind of stretches and these moves you can do. And we're doing all that as the employer. We're giving that to you free of charge. I don't have it in front of me, but I feel like off memory, our department, just the police department alone, we saved like $23,000 last year by seeing him had we turned that into insurance and gone to the facility.
um,
So now you do that across 3 or 4 different departments, you're at 100,000 plus,
well,
which
and
is good.
I think that a lot of people are thinking in terms of dollars, right? I think that a lot of times the cost, let me rephrase this. There's a price and there's a cost, right? So the price for having an athletic trainer on site would be X amount of dollars. And the cost of not doing that could be this much money, right? And so you have to like weigh out like, do you want to pay the price or the cost? Like
Yeah.
which
The
one?
ROI, right? The return on the investment. What's the ROI? What are
Exactly.
you getting for this payment? Well, for me, I'm getting guys and gals back to work quicker. My workers' comp rates are down. My absenteeism is down. That right there is worth its weight in gold when we're all struggling to hire people. I want to go back real quick to working out on duty because again, I've been on many podcasts, do my own podcast. I've talked about this before, and the number one pushback I hear is, well, what if they get hurt while they're working out? Is that a workers' comp claim? And I'm always like, yes, absolutely, it's a workers' comp claim. They're doing something you asked them to do. Well, you're just gonna have all kinds of people. They're gonna fake all kinds of injuries, this, that, and the other. And I always say, you don't have a workers' comp issue. You've got a culture problem. If
Mm,
you have people who are going to go in there and purposefully abuse it, that's a culture issue that you need to probably take a look at. It's not a workers' comp claim. I mean, it is. You understand what I'm saying, right? A little tongue
yeah.
in cheek there, but I've not had one person in all the, we've been doing this for probably 8 years now, working out on duty. Not one person's ever gone down there and said, "Oh, chief, man, I think I did something working out." Again, I think it's culture than anything.
Yeah. Well, I think there is a lot of fear, and I hear a lot of things too. It's like, well, like, how do we know? How do we know if we pay all this money that it's going to have an ROI? Like, how do we know that it's going to reduce injuries? How do we know that it's going to reduce mental health claims? And so I appreciate you saying, hey, we did it so that you
Hmm.
guys can have confidence in the fact that there is a substantial ROI. And I
Yeah.
also think that we have to, of course, money and budget, those are a thing. But I think when we talk about ROI, a lot of times we only think about dollars. But when you can look at the ROI of creating healthier, happier employees that have more quality of life and thinking about the human side of ROI, I think that is worthwhile, and it's not just about dollars, it's about the people, and the people
Yeah.
are the most valuable asset of your organization. And the point, if you look at any professional sports team, protect the assets at all costs. Like,
Right. Yeah. 100%.
like do
Yeah.
everything that you can to protect the assets. And in this case, the assets are human beings, and so yes, things are going to cost money, but the ROI is financial, but it's also the human side of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you have higher satisfaction, higher um, uh, uh, job satisfaction, higher morale, higher culture, higher retention. Again, we've lost people. We've had people leave here before, and I'm like, why are you leaving? Well, because this department you can do X, Y, and Z. We can't do that here. Okay, like I can't keep everybody. It's. I heard somebody say this just today. It's a buyer's market right now. It's like real estate. So they can go and I get all that. So for me, even despite that, I still want to try to make sure that as a leader, I'm doing everything I can to take care of the majority of the folks that I have. Um, and these little programs like this, that's the ROI,
Yeah.
is keeping these men and women as happy as they can be doing this crazy job that nobody wants to hardly do anymore. So we owe it to them. You spend more time inside these four walls with this family than you do outside the four walls with your own family. It's my job as a chief to make it the best it can possibly be. Hopefully you see it. Hopefully you understand that, so that because when you're happy inside here and you go out and you answer a call for service, you're not going to take it out on the citizens. You're going to be in a better mindset, right frame of mind. If you're having a bad day, you can come down here and go run for 60 minutes or throw some weights around, kind of cool off or re-energize yourself. You're less likely that at 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning you get tired and wreck your car or use force excessively. You get the idea. That's the ROI.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. And it sounds to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds to me like you really invested in culture and then you built programming that that culture could support. And so, what you said before is if you're afraid that maybe some people are going to abuse these things, then maybe we need to start with the culture part of it. Then you can build programming that's successful on top of that, that's going to help long term. I did want to kind of circle back a little bit to two things. I wanted to reiterate this because I thought this was really cool. And I also wanted your opinion on something. So, one, the fact that when you have those check ins, that you have family involvement, I think that is so cool. I've never heard that before, where one of those you have to bring a family member. And so supporting the home unit. And you said that before, that it all bleeds into each other. And I agree. I think that we talk like the conversation is always like shut it off before you go home and shut it off before you go to work. And while there might be some forms of compartmentalization, there is going to be some bleed over. And so I love that you guys are involving the family units as much as you can.
Mhm.
But I heard someone say this the other day. I'm curious what you think about this. So they said the only reason why you need to process stress is if you let it sit. If you don't let it sit, then you don't have to process it. What do you think of that comment?
If you don't let it sit, you don't have to process it. So, in other words, they're basically saying if you don't think about it, there's nothing to process.
I think what they were saying is like, how can
Or
you, as quickly as possible, offload that stress so that it doesn't like linger? And the more it lingers, the more you have to like sort through and process it. So, how can we, as quickly as possible, try to like get that stress away from us so that we don't feel like we're stuck in that space of having to process?
well, I'd go downstairs and throw some weights around. I mean, I'd go do some cardio, like I'd go run around the block or something. Like
Yeah,
I think what you can't do is keep it bottled up inside you,
exactly.
and yeah, and or take to the bottle or whatever else to try to deal with it. I'm not saying you can't socially enjoy yourself, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I think I say this in some of the classes that I teach is the I always know I'm being lied to when I hear a police officer tell me this. You ready? Quote, when I leave the police department, I don't think about that place till my next shift. And I'm always like, bullshit. I just said this a second ago. You spend more time here than with your own family. If it wasn't for what we allowed you to do inside this department, you wouldn't live the lifestyle you live at home. So don't tell me I'm going camping this weekend and screw it. I'm not thinking about work at all. I can appreciate it, but the reality is you're allowed to go camping or go boating or go on a cruise or do whatever because you make money here that allowed you to live that lifestyle. So I always follow up with this. If I went and asked your significant other how you were at the house with that attitude, what do you think I would hear in return? Like, what's the response? And I'm not going to repeat it on the podcast, but you can imagine the responses I would hear. He's a beep, she's a beep, she's a beep, right? I mean, it would be just a plethora of profanities because you can't not take it home. So let's go back to culture for a second. And again, if we can give them the best environment here and take care of them while they're inside this building, my hope is that when they leave here, they can be better where they need to be and focused, and that's at home with their kids and engaging in sports and helping them with homework or going on a date, whatever the heck it is you do. Now, again, we're dealing with humans, we're dealing with people. We're all going to have bad days. Things aren't, there's no like rainbow above my police department. This is the perfect, this is the mecca, this is what we have issues. Everybody does. But majority of folks are happy. Majority of the people aren't leaving. Majority of the people are still excited to come in. Then I think you're doing something right. I can tell you I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago when I walked in because we've created a decent environment now. I don't need to be here 90 hours a week. You know what I'm saying? When I first got here, I was spending a ton of time here because we were trying to get that culture where it is. It's there now. So yeah,
I
kind
want
of
to talk,
blab there,
I
but go
want to
ahead.
talk about that a little bit actually, because you are closer to retirement than you were the beginning of your career, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
And you told me when we were talking offline that you have a lot of things going on. You have your podcast, your training, all the things that you're doing. And I asked you the question, is it bittersweet, to kind of be looking towards retirement and leaving? And your response I thought was really interesting. And so I was hoping you could share a little bit about your feelings towards, working towards retirement and how you can proactively set yourself up to be in a space where you're ready for that.
Well, I think one thing that folks have to do is you have to get mentors. You have to find people that you trust, that you look at, and you're like, I want to be like him or her when when I get to wherever I am in my career, right? So I've tried to do that my entire career. Find mentors, find people I trust, look at successful people and go, that one, that one, that one. Definitely not those two, that one, that one, that one, right?
Mhm.
Identify those people. Then find out from them people what did they do that got them where they are? Why do they resonate with you? And then have those conversations. One of the conversations I had 12, 13 years ago before I became chief was with a guy who was a chief at a large urban department in the Midwest, went to a suburban department in the Midwest, and now he's a national instructor teaching for a very highly reputable training company. And he told me, he said, Scott, he said, if you don't already have this in place, make sure you get a LinkedIn profile and make sure you're active on it. And I'm like, what the hell's LinkedIn and why do I need that? And he goes, trust me, look at it, open up a profile, blah blah blah. So I did that and didn't pay much attention to it. Well, then fast forward 3, 4, 5 years, now I'm a chief. And I'm starting to hear, I'm going to these chief conferences and things, and you're starting to have these conversations about, hey, if you're a chief now, you're probably at the end of your career or towards the end of your career, and you're going to be looking about what's that next step. So they talked a lot about branding yourself and making yourself marketable so that whether you want to go be a chief somewhere else, you want in the private sector, you want to do consulting work, whatever the case might be, you're there. So for me, it was identifying a mentor, taking advantage of social media, branding myself, being a resource for folks, being involved in committees and associations that are going to professionalize the job, and um, know now what you want to do. Like have a forecast, have a plan, like think like what is it that you want to do,
Mm.
because 10 years is going to fly by, and it's flown by for me. Um, and I would be in panic mode right now if someone said, "Hey, Hughes, you got to retire in 2 months. Good luck." I'd be like, if I didn't have a plan, like a direction of where I wanted to go, um, it'd be a struggle. It's got to be for me. I'm going to do some things that I'm passionate about. I'm going to continue giving back to law enforcement. Teaching, consulting, expert witness stuff is a must. Helping develop technology and working for folks that are going to make our space better. And it's funny because last week I was driving to an event. I was on the phone for an hour with a chief who's about 4 years behind me. And he's doing the exact same thing that I just described. So now it's kind of funny because it's like full circle. You know what I mean? Like, wait a minute, I was making those phone calls not too long ago. Now you're calling me. But that makes me feel good that there are folks out there that are like, hey, I want to do what Hughes did. I'm gonna reach out and have that conversation. So
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered your question, but it sounded good.
You did. I love it. And I think it's so difficult, especially for young people. I think about when I was like in my 20s and someone's like, plan for the future. And I'm like, future, like I don't even know what that means, and you're right, 10 years goes by so fast. And so I think it's a really important message to say, hey, like we can have short-term goals, we can have midterm goals, and we can have
Yeah,
long-term goals. And sometimes those things change. Maybe you have a clear picture of where you want to go and what you want to do. And then when that 10 years passes by, it looks different. And so having
yeah,
those periods of reassessment, is that still my goal? Is that still what I want to do? Yes or no? And if it's no, then how can I, kind of adjust things and plan for what I want to do now? But the idea is that you have awareness around the fact that your career one day will end. And when it does end, what does the future look like? And how can you put in place things now where your future self is going to be proud of you for doing those things? And you said something to me earlier that I wanted to circle back and because I thought it was really cool. And it seemed to me like you were really proud of the work that you had done organizationally and that you felt really good to be able to walk away and leave it in the hands of the people who are currently there, And so I thought that was something worth mentioning because I think that is the best that any of us can hope for is that we look back on different chapters of our lives and we look back on our careers and we're proud of what we did. And then we help develop the people underneath of us to be able to take it over and hopefully do better than we did, because we
yeah,
we set them up for success. So I wanted to point that out.
yeah. No, great. That's great. My dad told me, God rest his soul, my dad told me that your job as a father is to give your children a better life than I gave you.
Mm.
And, being a police officer or being a police chief now is I want to give these men and women a better career than I had through whatever available means I can. So if you're young in your career, I would set realistic 5 year goals every 5 years, right? In 5 years, I want to do this. And the next 5 years, then that happens, I want to do this. I can remember for probably the first 10 years of my career, I never had any aspirations of being a police chief. In fact, I can remember saying the highest I want to ever go is a sergeant because a sergeant, you get to work with your people. You're still one of them, but you're kind of got some authority and you kind of make some changes, but you're not a chief. You're not one of them. And then I'm a sergeant for a while and I'm like, you know what? I think I could be a lieutenant. Well, that's when we all kind of realized, hey, we're all going to be fighting for this one spot. So I went ahead and left and went to become an assistant chief at a different department. And I'm the assistant chief. And I thought I'll do this for a few years. This will be cool. Yeah, maybe one day I'll be a chief. But kind of being the assistant chief is kind of the best job because, hey, it's him and then it's me. They got to go through him before they get to me. Well, then this job opened up, and I'm like, I could probably do it, but they're not going to hire me. I don't, there's be way more qualified people that are going to apply. Well, be careful what you wish for because you just might get it. And yeah, so here I am. But little goals like I wanted to be an FTO when I was young. I became an FTO. I wanted to be involved in our Explorer post. I was involved, became the advisor. I wanted to be in traffic. I wanted to be in I wanted to be in the street crimes team. I ended up running the thing. You know what I mean? So those little goals along the way um, certainly have paid off that mindset. You know, it's funny. We hire new people, and I'll ask them, you know, in the interview process, where do you see yourself in 5 years? You know, maybe supervisor, running blah blah blah. I'm like, I mean, maybe, but like in the first 5 years, you just figured out like really how to be a good cop.
Yeah.
And that's probably a different podcast about promoting people too young these days. But
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing when you said that. I'm like, that's a whole nother
yeah, yeah,
conversation for sure.
it really is. But yeah, I feel like having realistic aspirations. You know, there's a lot of folks. You and I are connected on LinkedIn. You're friends with a lot of same folks that I'm friends with, or connected with the same people I'm connected with. And you know, there's some folks out there that after 5, 6, 7 years, they realize, hey, this isn't for me, and and that's okay. And they're doing a good job educating folks as to, you know, there is another life. If this isn't for you, you know, don't stay in it. I'm not trying to talk anybody out of law enforcement, but you know, don't stay in a job to chase a date, right? We all get in that pension system. We all see, ooh, that magic day. But if that's going to make you miserable, you'll be okay. There's plenty of options out there. And then the flip side of that is if that date happens and you're like, I still got 10, 15 years to give, let's go, baby. Like we need that, you know, we need people with that kind of right frame of mind and that mindset. Because if you're passionate and you still got it, you know, if you still get excited, you know, I still get excited when I put all this gear on. I still
Mhm.
enjoy it. I'm not I'm not retiring because I don't enjoy it. I'm retiring because there's too many opportunities that have presented themselves that financially don't make sense to pass up. So that's why I'm choosing to retire soon. But I still like putting this on and wearing this badge and this gun because I still enjoy this job. And I think that's just as important.
And I think that we have to ask ourselves those questions because there's always going to be peaks and valleys throughout our career. And there's going to be some times that are really hard. But if you can come back and ask yourself, do I still love what I do? Do I still have a passion for what I do? Do I still have a deeper mission and why for, doing what I do? And if that answer is yes, then knowing that the peaks never last as long as we want them to, and the valleys aren't forever. But if you can connect back to your why and understand, and I have to do that sometimes, or I wake up and I'm like, I had one moment, I'll be completely honest. I had one moment where I woke up recently and I was like, oh, I'm not a morning person either. So like just take that for what it is. But I was like, oh, I have to do this today. And then I checked myself really quickly and I was like, no, I get to do this today. Like some things are hard, some things are stressful for sure, but
Yeah.
like I get to do this. And I think we all have the ability to choose how we respond to certain things. And we have to have those honest conversations with ourselves. But I also think that sometimes we just have to look at things a little bit differently and we have to like reframe things and understand, is this, short term? Am I just feeling stressed and kind of unhappy right now and it's a season, but I still love
Yeah.
what I do? Or no, and have those real honest conversations with ourselves. And I'm excited for your future. I think that's really cool. I also think it's a
Thank
really
you.
interesting thing that someone early on was like, get a LinkedIn profile. And then we connected through LinkedIn. And now here we are
Yeah.
today having a
Yeah.
podcast. So it's
Yeah.
full circle.
You
Um,
know, I'll tell you this too, real quick. I heard this one time. I'm probably gonna screw it up, but
yeah.
like you can be a victim once, then after that, it's just this victim mentality. And to
Mhm.
your point a second ago, like that drives me nuts about folks. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, but like that some of the things we complain about, like others would give anything to be in that position.
Mhm.
And if you can try to remember that, um, you know, think a lot of it is just is frame of mind, and it's easy to just blame somebody else. It's easy to have this victim mentality. It's hard to go, I'm up in the morning every day at the gym at 6 a.m. When that alarm goes up at 5:30, it'd be very easy to go, boop, not today. But I realize, hey, if I don't keep myself in shape and do X, Y, and Z, it's obvious reasons are going to happen, right? Myself, not going to be there for my family, won't be there for the officers, won't be able to watch my kids grow up and have grandkids, blah 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 blah. So Anyway, you have to just, like you said, you got to change your mindset and change how you view things.
Mhm.
And I think that changes the game.
I agree with you. And I've actually been having this conversation a lot because I've been noticing that it's, this person and that person and the world and, the circumstance and all those things are true. Maybe you don't like the decisions that people are making. And maybe there are people who are, not being nice to you or don't value you or whatever. But I think that we have to give ourselves authority in our own life. Like you have to understand how much control and power you have over yourself. And
Right.
that's all you have control over, and
Yeah.
so you get to choose how you show up. And I agree with you. I think that it's mental training, and we have to take a step back and understand that we have authority in our own lives, and that's really kind of all we can control, right? So
Yeah. It's not the incident, it's your interpretation of it.
100%.
Right. It's
Yep.
how you view it is the issue.
Mhm.
I've heard like the chief this, the captain that. What the chief of police does day to day should not have zero impact on someone working at 4 in the morning, right? I mean, unless they've instituted some just ridiculous policy or something. It's your perception, how you perceive it, and you're letting, like, what's the old saying, like living rent free in people's minds.
Yep. Yeah.
Like you're letting other people control you and control how you feel, and that's insane. Like, why would you let them tell you how to feel?
Yeah.
You're you do you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and I had someone say this one time and I liked it a lot and I agree. I think it's you are the only one who can make yourself happy. You are the only one who can make yourself healthy. And you get to choose that, And I think that a lot of people wait for other outside forces to like somehow, make them happy or make them healthier. And at the end of the day, like no one can do that for you. And
Mhm.
sometimes that sucks to like realize that like it's on you, to like have that accountability and then realize that you have to take the action, that maybe is hard for people to understand sometimes, but no one else can make you happy or healthy. That's on you. So,
Yeah.
my final question, because I know that we're running out on time and
Yeah.
you've already given so many great words of wisdom, but I have to ask the question for the younger generation, what words of wisdom would you share with them?
Well, I don't want to repeat myself, but as you rise through the ranks, don't forget where you came from. That's number one. Number two, don't worry about things you can't control. Too many young cops, I've seen it, it's happened here, I've seen it happen other places. They worry about things that they can't change and they let that consume them.
Mm.
And they'll be doored up in a parking lot, sitting side by side, just complaining about something they're not going to change. And when that stuff starts to happen, that's when you're going to really spiral and you can go down a bad place. And people don't want to talk about this. We always think about, yeah, you'll be this bad, mental, bitter person. But I'm talking about this. You're sitting doored up with somebody complaining about something you cannot change, and a call comes out. And now you're going to that call with this, you're still thinking about something the chief did, and you're not focused on the call. And next thing you know, you violate some fundamental officer safety, and now you're in the fight for your life, you're in a shootout, and now your brain's got to work that much harder to try to get you focused because you're still in that parking lot complaining about something you have no control over. I understand we're human, we're going to vent, things are going to make us upset, but we've got to, when we realize we're going down that path, we got to turn it off and be like, you know what, I can't let other people have control over me. I've had more than one person reach out to me and express an issue they have going on at their department. And I've given them options, and finally I've said, look, the only option you may have then is to leave. If it's just that bad and it's affecting all these things, go find a different place to work. Good for you. Everybody's hiring, right? You can find another department. It wasn't like that back in the day. Back in the day when I started, here comes the old man talking now. You were stuck. One person 300 people show up for one job.
Yeah.
Today, one person shows up for 300 jobs. You get the point.
Mhm.
So, yeah, those are my words of wisdom. Remember where you came from. Don't worry about things you can't control. Take care of yourself, and thank you. They don't hear it enough. These young kids, they don't hear enough how much they're appreciated and how much we need them. And imagine a world with no law enforcement. It would be complete, utter chaos.
Mm.
And our society cannot function, would not succeed without law and order. There's a reason why we call it the thin blue line, because you are what separates good from bad, right from wrong, good from evil, etc. We need you. Don't ever forget that. And thank you for what you do.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you coming
Yeah,
on here. I really enjoyed that conversation. So thank you.
absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you.
Of course.